I think the key thing to understand here is that we're moving into an era of multimodal communications. By this I mean that customers today are not just phoning up a contact centre anymore to get an answer. They're actually using other devices to make contact for customer care concerns. For example, they're using internet, SMS, IM chat, all of these sorts of things. And so a contact centre of the past only needed to care for its phone system, because that's how most people contacted them. They used a phone system. Contact centres today and in the future will need to accommodate multimodal communications to look after the customer concerns. So as a result of that, unified communications is coming to the floor, because it really is a technology that allows a contact centre to deliver customer care across many different platforms. And so as a result, we're seeing quite significant growth in the contact centre, but also in enterprises throughout the Asia-Pacific region. Yeah, there are three primary concerns around the adoption of UC. The first is that the cost. There is obviously a certain cost in rolling out the infrastructure, and companies have to consider whether that's something they want to take on board in the first instance. The second thing is that for UC to work well, you definitely need broadband bandwidth, and you need reliable broadband as well. So you have to make sure that your virtual private networks and what other networks you either have yourself or are being leased from other providers are up to the task of being able to provide the bandwidth needed. It may be suitable for voice communications, but if you want to add video communications as well, you're going to need an extremely large piece of bandwidth. So not all countries today can deliver in all parts of the country sufficiently wide bandwidths to facilitate that. So that's the second primary concern. The third one is around legacy. What is it you've got in place today, and how can you make what you've got in place today talk to the new generation systems? Can you reuse some of the infrastructure associated with that or not? And what is the cost of doing the integration from what you've got today to what you want in the future? So those are the three things which all customers will need to consider very carefully before launching into the UC. And for some, they've made the step to go ahead now. Others are still in the state of consideration. Yeah, so definitely you need a sound broadband capability, a broadband network in place. You'll need to have all the traditional infrastructure. This is your switches, your routers, your LANs in place to support these types of things. But importantly too, you'll need to consider the audio endpoints, which is where Jabra comes into the floor. And by audio endpoints, I mean it may be the desktop speakerphone, it may be the headsets, it may be some form of handsets, because without utilising these types of devices at the end of the system, the quality of the service that you'll get and the customer satisfaction associated with the communications you'll get will fall. And so these tools become very important. So the infrastructure and the audio endpoints are definitely considerations. You tend to see probably two waves here. The first one is that the developing countries seem to be in the second wave. The developed countries are definitely in the first wave of implementation. Part of the reason for that is the state of readiness of the broadband systems that are in the country. So places like Singapore and Hong Kong, where broadband connectivity is excellent, clearly we're seeing a lot of rollouts in those sorts of countries. Whereas in developing markets like Indonesia, for example, which are still struggling in some parts to get decent, reliable broadband connectivity, it's a bit slower. So it'll be two-phased. We are interestingly seeing a lot of interest come out of India, and that is largely being driven by the large number of multinational companies in that particular country. And you can appreciate that if you're a foreign multinational and you've got a presence in India and perhaps globally, your key consideration or your key question is, how do I connect up all of my office on a global system, and how do I have consistency in terms of how I connect up my offices? And UC is a solution around that, whether it's using a Microsoft platform or a Cisco platform or indeed an Avaya platform.